getting you to a bigger number than 191. Another person put this number sentence on.
Great. Hands down. Track Deanna.
The number sentence that go with the song is 62 plus 129 equal 191.
She said 62 plus 129 equals 191. Deanna, why did you start with 62?
Because that's the number that they started with first.
It's the number we started with first.
Is that number in the story?
No.
Can I put it there in this number sentence?
Yeah.
You can? This is the number sentence in the story, and I can put that 62 there?
Yeah.
You can't, can you? What do you have to put there?
You gotta put a box right there because you ain't know how many you started with.
Totally agree with you. So let's put a box right there. Nope, let's completely black it out and put a box up front. So because we don't know that number, we just need a box. So you said box plus 129 equals 191.
But you need a number in the back.
This is the one that matches the story. Is this number, is the 62 that you found out in the story?
No.
What do you think, Kai? Do you see 62 in our story?
No.
No? Why not?
Where is the 62?
What? At the beginning?
It is expected to be at the beginning, isn't it? Did anybody get it at the beginning? Because you talked about beginning numbers. Did anybody start with 62?
No. Because they didn't know what it was.
They didn't know what it was, so they couldn't start with it? Huh. So, back to our other question. Why can they do this if this is the number sentence that matches our story?
Because those numbers in the story and you can only use the numbers.
Only use the numbers in this story.
And sometimes you don't know.
Interesting. What do you guys think about that? Agrees or disagrees that you have to use the numbers in the story, but sometimes you don't have to? Hands
Somebody
down.
needs to convince us.
Hands down. Touch Jamad. Loud and proud. Stand tall. What do you think, Jamad?
I think that I think that is the number sentence because if we didn't know that's what the song was, we couldn't add it to the problem because at first because we didn't know what was supposed to be in the box until when you find out it was a 62, you had to start with 129 because you didn't know what was in the box at first.
I totally agree with you, but we didn't know what was in the box at first. And so you said then we would start with 129. Do we have to start with 129 next?
No.
So, hold on. Go ahead.
But sometimes you can start with 191 to take away 129 to find out what was in the box.
You could sometimes do that. Do you have to?
No.
Continue.
No. And so you have to, and
so you told me if I start with 191, I take away 129, and that helps me know what I started with. So why are they starting with 129?
Because if you don't know what was in the first part of the problem, you can start with the second part, but you ain't always have to do it because sometimes you can start with the end of the.
You convinced me I could start at the end because you said if I take the 191 and I take this away, I get back to what I started with. totally agree with that conversation. I'm just not sure why I would start with 129.
Because you don't know what was in the box.
I agree, but why would I start with 129?
Because that replaced the box.
I can just switch this to replace it with this box?
Because you don't know what was in it.
Huh. So I don't know, so I could literally think about this as 129 plus something gets me 191? And just switch this around? Why?
Because if you don't know what was in the box, you couldn't start with it because
I totally agree with you. It's hard to start with something I don't know. I totally agree. So you said I could switch this around and start with 129. Why can I switch this around and start with 129?
because
Totally agree with you.
Because if they have the word sum in a problem, you have to start with another number because you gotta switch them around because you don't know what the sum means.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. Can someone add on to why you can switch this around, he said, and start with 129? Whoops. Thank you so much. I totally get the backwards. I totally get the switch, but I'm not sure why the switch.
Awesome. Hands down. Try Kenyan. Kenyan, can you add on to that? I saw that you really wanted to build onto what your mod said. How can I switch those?
And start, because you guys were all talking about the start, right? He said I can start here, take away this, and I get here. I totally agree with that.
Ashton.
But he said I could start here and switch this around, but he wasn't telling me why I could switch it around. I totally agree you can, but I'm not sure why I can switch that around and start with 129.
Do you know why I can switch them? All right.
He had changed that. He had the 29. You could 129 because if you didn't know that Kyman had, he started with that number. But if that number was blanked out and it was covered and you couldn't see it, was a smaller number. But if you start with 129, you see how many you got, and you see how many you count up to get to 120 and 191.
Oh.
You gonna see.
So if you said if I switch these around and find out how much from the 129 to the 191, that's how you find it when you switch it around?
See, if you put 129.
Yeah.
In that box.
If you put 120, not in the box.
No, not in the box.
Okay, I just switch those around so my box is second. Okay, so if I have 129, box,
Focus, Lions.
191.
Equals 62. I mean, yeah, equals 62.
Why?
Because you start with 129.
I love that start.
And then you wanna count on until you get to 191. But then you're gonna get your answer. Then it's gonna be 62.
Okay, so 129 plus 62 equals 191. Okay, so why can I do that now? I agree you can, because you just explained how. But why can we do that?
Check your body and make sure that you're ready to focus your
Why
brains.
But they had 91 in the story at first. They see how many you can get, to how many stickers they got to get to that number.
I totally agree. Okay, you told me that.
But
You
they-
told me that. You told me how. I totally agree that I can switch it around and go from the 129 to the 191, and that'll tell me what goes right here when I switch it around.
What goes right here is 62 in the box because the number you saw was 179 because they didn't have no number right here then you had to go right there. And that number they said he bought 129.
Totally agree with you.
And he,
Totally agree with you.
And he can get, so when you switch it around, it's 60.
Totally agree that that's how I can. Totally agree that that's how I can get the 62. What I want to know is why I can switch those around. Take a seat. Do you know why I can switch these two numbers around?
Stand up loud and proud, track Lonnie.
Why can you switch these two numbers around? She told me how I could get my answer when I start there. I want to know why I can switch those two numbers around.
Because if you don't know the answer, you should start with that number. Then you put the box in the middle, and then when you got your answers, you put it in it, and then you put it all together, and it's gonna give you 191.
I totally agree. And I think that's what our friend said. Totally agree with that. Totally agree on how to get that answer when you start at 129. I just don't know yet why you can actually switch that from the very beginning. Do you know? Why? Why can I actually switch that at the very beginning and put 129 plus box equals 191?
Because in the box, the sum is nothing. The sum is nothing, and the 129 or the 191 is a number. So so far, if that's a blank box, you can't put nothing in it until you try to find out what number helps you get to 191.
Oh, that's very interesting. What number helps me get to 191? Sounds like what our last friend just said and our other friend just said. I totally agree with you. Just nobody has convinced me why at the very start I can switch those two around. Why?
You can switch it around because you don't know what's in the box, so you gotta start with the number that you bought and then add up to 91 and count the ones that you had in the middle that you started with.
I totally agree. Every single one of you now has explained to me how I can solve for this problem. No one's told me why I can switch it at the very beginning. What do you think?
You can switch it.
This is something you guys told us in kindergarten.
Because you could flip flop them and you could.
Why can I flip flop them?
Because
I really agree with you. I can flip flop them. Why?
Because that's the number. Because you don't know how many they started with, and if you do the number that you know how much it is big, and if you switch it, then it's gone. Then you gonna figure out. But if you keep it first, then you're not gonna know what it is.
I totally get it. I've got all of you telling me how I can do this, but nobody's told me why I can do it. So I'm gonna, you think you can tell me? Why?
Because flip-flop because.
And I love that language. You guys are onto something. You can flip-flop it because.
Do a flip-flop because if you start with 29, then you won't add to get to.
If I start with 120 times.
You won't add to get to 191.
Totally agree, I can do that.
And you go flip-flop because you started with a lesser number.
Okay, so far nobody's told, I have two friends who have told me I can flip-flop it. That's a really nice start, but nobody's told me why. So we're gonna leave you that because I totally agree that I can start here and start here because you have justified how I get that answer. But Nobody's told me why I could flip-flop this at the very beginning. So we want to think about that in the future. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
All right.